to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Well, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta. I am the Quiet Warrior. I'm excited to have on the show today Ms. Rachel Richards. Hey, Rachel, Money Honey Richards, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, you look great, and I see your books on the back there, and so it tells me that you got a lot of thoughts to share. This is really about you, but before I turn it to you, I just want to say, and you'll get to know my dark humor, that my wife, who's a career banker and now does work in our company, she refers to me as Hun or Honey, and so this is the first time I'm close to calling another woman Honey on my show. But she understands. I just love that title. Everybody will understand. So, Rachel, let's turn it to you. This is about you. Tell us a little known fact, something you think people don't know about you.
People that don't know me probably don't realize that I have played piano since I was 5 years old. And I actually got a really big scholarship for college for piano. So that's part of the way I paid my way through school.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for sharing that. If you had a piano there, we'd put you on it. Let me tell the audience about you, because it's notable for them to know the depth of your background, and then we'll get into your story. First of all, everybody, Rachel is just recently moved to Colorado from Kentucky. So welcome to your new home.
Thank you.
She's, I like to say 27 years old, not only 27, because we have to honor your age group, but you were a former financial advisor. And in 2019, wait for it, everybody, Rachel quit her job and retired with over $10,000 a month in passive income. She's an author of 2 books, Money Honey and Passive Income Aggressive Retirement. And well, she's helping thousands of millennials work their way out of financial despair. And this was the connection to the lead-in I talked about on the show about mental health. So Rachel, welcome to the show. And really, it's great to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Well, what I want to do is I want to tell you about the hero's journey, which is the narrative of the show, is to bring on guests and talk about the backstory. We learn from that. We know that success and financial freedom and retirement isn't a straight line up. Take us back right to the beginning. I mean, you can start where you started in life, and tell us how you got to where you are, and then we're going to dig into some of that great content you have.
Yeah, for sure. So I've always been passionate about personal finance, even from a young age. One of my earliest memories was being in 6th grade and being at this summer camp, and all my friends were playing and going down the water slides. And I was sitting on the edge of this pool reading this book, Motley Fool's Guide for Teens, How to Have More Money Than Your Parents Ever Dreamed of. So my nerdiness started from a very young age, and I've always been an avid reader. I taught myself a ton about money management growing up. And my first job out of college was a former financial advisor. I then went on to become a finance analyst, but I have found other ways to continue helping people learn about financial literacy.
Yeah, that's awesome. How old were you when you started reading that book?
I was in 6th grade, so I don't know what.
So just 12? Think about that, everybody. Think about that thought, everybody. I mean, this is a teaching moment about the power of reading. I mean, 12 years old, reading a book about Motley Fool's Drive for Teens and financial. I mean, now I'm already going like, yeah, thank you. Welcome to the nerd club. I'm like you. And I think everybody relates to it. So along the journey of your early life, a lot of us have planted in us feelings, emotions. Our neural nets are full of things that sometimes other people said to us. And so you defined yourself by playing piano and reading this book and then creating what we're going to talk about. What was the turning point, what we call the call to adventure, where you decided that you're going to do something different to help the world?
There's been so many different turning points, but one of the earlier ones that shaped me is still when I was pretty young. I grew up in a really wealthy county, so I was surrounded by the uber rich. My family, we weren't going out to eat. We weren't going on luxurious vacations. And in my high school, when people turned 16, some of them would get brand new BMWs. So I remember feeling very out of my element at a young age. And when you're in middle school and high school, all you want is to fit in. So that definitely impacted me. I realized that I didn't want to end up like everyone else when it came to money. I didn't want to have to operate on a strict budget. I didn't want to have to borrow money from family and friends to make it to my next paycheck. I wanted to be different. And I realized at a relatively young age that what I did then would either set me up for wealth or for poverty. So I realized I wanted to kind of take control, learn everything I could about money management, and become wealthy and become financially independent. I have had this fear since a young age of not having enough money. And that's something that really was ingrained in me. And they say fear can be very motivating, which in my case it was. It's one of the reasons I'm so ambitious and I'm so driven. And, I always have this sense still that, oh my gosh, do I have enough money? But I've learned to kind of develop an abundance mindset. So I've come a long way, but that's something that definitely has shaped me from a young age.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, Rachel, that I usually find this moment on the show later. And yesterday's guest, I said, here it is. And it was about half an hour in. When we hear somebody like you say something like that, that's literally the hero's journey. Some call it the dark night of the soul, which is going from the known world into the unknown world and exploring. And it usually happens when there's a fear or something that is in us that we don't want that anymore, and it controls us. And I just want to honor you. I love that part of your story, and I want to just take, my mind's going in a different direction here, so say a few things about it, and then we'll bring it back to you. That there's many youth in the world that have fears of not being enough. I know that one of my mentors taught me two of the biggest fears are not being loved and not enough. We also know that, because my passion's mental health, that the way people define their self-worth many times is by comparing to others. How many likes did I get on Facebook today? But also, I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. My dad was an electrician, but I was surrounded by kids that had wealth. And I went through life feeling a little bit inadequate only because we didn't have what they had. So I totally relate to that story. And I think one of the reasons why you're so popular is when you're speaking now, there are so many people who say, that's my story. Or people later in life who have maybe acquired wealth, and not just money, wealth is time and all that, but have self-sabotaged. So I want to make this comment and turn it back to you for you to comment on it, that I listened to an audiobook a while ago. I won't promote it on the show, about how we're wired at a young age with a good or bad relationship with money. In other words, if you have a bad relationship with money, you're not going to attract more. And money, I don't have a bad relationship or belief, but I did grow up with my in-laws hearing at the table, my father-in-law went through depression. I love him dearly. He passed away. He's just a great man. But he was in Italy on the side of the mountain herding sheep, and somebody stole his flock. And so as I sat around the dinner table for years after I got to know my wife, he would say things like, who needs that shit, when he was watching Christmas commercials about, material things. And he said that my mom gave us an orange to play with. We didn't have toys. And so he had this belief about money. I talked to many CEOs who I have in my network, and they'll say that what drove them was this chip on their shoulder. But there's actually proof that some top leaders who run companies can actually bankrupt them consciously, because wired in them is a bad relationship with money. In other words, if I get it, it's always, I never had it and it's going to go away. So I might as well get that pain back. The millennial generation, which I want you to talk about in this, and I'll bring it to a sort of a succinct point here. They say that the millennials they have a different view of money, that because they've seen their parents grow up, and corporate America has downsized their parents. Their parents were workaholics like mine. My dad was laid off. The union never looked at, and my mom had to clean toilets to basically feed the kids. And then we see some of the generation have gone through the financial collapse, and they've seen that pain. They've seen all the stories on TV about the big bad banks. And I have to tell you that I started my career as a banker. And so now they're saying, well, millennials, they're not going to use debt and credit as much. They're not going to trust as many people like the bankers. They're going to educate themselves and find a different way. So I'm just going to give it back to you. I've said a lot there, but just talk about, the generation that you're in, and how you view money and how you view the world, having seen things that some generations haven't.
Oh, absolutely. So first, I think we're absolutely in a financial education crisis. At no point in our lives are we taught how to manage our money. And then we're left as young adults to try to figure it out all on our own. And unfortunately, and I'm sure this has impacted other generations too, but I definitely see this a lot in young people, but we feel so inadequate when it comes to our money management that it leads into feelings of guilt and shame and embarrassment. And that's so unfortunate. I think women tend to feel it a little bit stronger than men, but men feel that too. And it's unfortunate because we really weren't given the resources that we need to succeed financially. So I see that a lot. And I like what you said, Tom, about money mindset, because I think that is huge. You know, you adopt a money mindset at a young age from your parents and from what you see and how other people manage their money. And my money mindset was one of scarcity. I never felt like I was going to have enough money. That's where my fear came from. So if you think about having this mindset of, man, there's never going to be enough money. I am just desperate to make more money. I wish I had more money. Money's never there for me when I need it. That's a mindset of scarcity versus thinking about this mindset. I love money. I have more than enough money. Money comes easily and abundantly to me and effortlessly to me. That's an abundance mindset. And I've really had to learn how to transition my mindset and really shape my thoughts and beliefs so I can live in that abundance mindset. One thing I've done that's been very impactful that I recommend for everybody is affirmations. So just repeating those exact same things that I just said to yourself every single day, 30 days in a row. I've done this for different areas of my life. I've done this to gain confidence public speaking. I've done this for my sprained ankle so that I could heal faster. I'm very practical and pragmatic, and this stuff used to strike me as like, wow, that's really out there. But I truly think that what we manifest in our head can manifest itself in reality. So saying those phrases over and over, even if you don't believe them, that you love money. Money comes effortlessly to me. I'm grateful for everything that money has afforded me in my life. You can really alter the way that you think and feel about money.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, by the way, everybody, listen to the energy in Rachel's voice now. I just going to tell a funny story here, Rachel, that I sent you an email this morning. And I told you this offline, that what comes back is I'm out of my office for 4 days on some R&R. And I go, I think I've seen that before since I met you. And the thing about it is, everybody, you buy people for who they are. I mean, authors, this. Authors, I'm an author. We don't get bought for our books. They buy into us. And your energy and your lifestyle is what people can attract. And I want to make this statement, everybody, that if you're listening to this and you're saying, money, it's not about money, you need to really have a gut check and check your limiting beliefs, because money builds schools. Money helps find cures. Money donated to help the community deal with crisis. Money matters, and money can form different things. In my view, Rachel, money to me is not just about, now, I want to bring you into not a secret. I wrote who you're talking to here, because I'm learning from you. That's the cool thing about this interview. And this is not a bad secret or anything like that. So everybody, you don't have to plug your ears. I'm verbose and out there about my story. But one of the things that empowered me in my life from a young age was overcoming adversity and fears and limiting beliefs. And that's why I'm so proud of you and what you've done, because even though you say that, everybody needs to know it. The way the brain works, you have a thought, it creates a feeling, emotion, it creates a behavior. And there's only two paths out of that triangle: react or respond. And react never works well. And most of us have so much crap embedded in us about negativity that, and especially if you turn on the news, jobs are disappearing because of COVID and financial crisis. All we're hearing and putting into our hard drive is that. So Rachel's point about affirmations is fantastic. I want to tell you, Rachel, that when I hiked the Coquitlam Crunch, which I was telling you about, a hike trail up here, one of my biggest ones is I am enough. Money flows through me. I mean, I'm a big fan of but that's how I basically survived in my life, because my brain was controlling me. So here's the big story of mine. In 2007, I was a paid CEO. My wife was a career banker. We made significant income. I mean, 6 figures. We had the houses and everything was full up. And we were at a point in our life where everything was, and 3 events happened. One is my company restructured. And I've been through that twice because I'm a change agent. So it's like, yeah, that's going to happen. But at the same time, we were caught in a global Ponzi scheme of fraud. 4,000 investors lost $400 million in North America. I mean, this went as far as the NFL and professional athletes. There was a couple we met who were in their senior years who had sold 6 businesses and put millions into this. And last we heard years ago, the lady was working at McDonald's. It's horrific. What happened was we trusted financial advice, and we were bankers, and we were embarrassed. And we were put into this thing, and it was the Ponzi scheme was $1 billion around the world, and forensic accountants couldn't even see it. So I developed this fear of money, fear of loss. You have to imagine, I woke up one morning and all my liquid assets were gone. I just had my house, and it led us in this trail of, I saw in your bio, you said helping people through despair. And I had to learn various things. I'll finish with this. I became a minimalist. I shed the ugliness of the costs that I wanted in my life that I didn't need. And I mentioned to you, or I put it on Facebook, another person I listened to is Dave Ramsey, about his rant on, debt and, why we don't have money, the stupid things. And I know when we get into your book in detail, I'm going to get some nuggets from you. But that was 2008. I had to live off of cash and no credit for about 8 years. And the learning I went through that, it made me unravel all the stuff I learned that was taught to me that was wrong. Let me tell you the second piece, which is quicker. I was a career banker, and at age 20-something, a lot like you, I was a loan officer and then became an assistant branch manager of loans. So I had a $300 million portfolio in downtown Vancouver at one of the largest trust companies. Now, why is that not for ego for me telling you? But I had to go out and have lunch with doctors, lawyers, pilots, because we were selling this leveraged program of loans and low interest lines of credit. We were basically giving these high wage people credit to get more stuff. And as I did the applications, oh my God, Rachel, I mean, this is behind the scenes stuff, but the loan applications from these people who are in their 50s, 55, 60s, and there I am, little Tommy, I've got no kids, I've got no life experience, and they're looking at me like, who are you? And I'm looking at people who are virtually bankrupt. And so I'm thinking that if that was the generation that learned from their generation how to do that, and they're raising their kids who grow up and see the fancy cars and the stuff and the big payments and all the stress that comes from those parents who bring it home, how are we teaching? And the last thing is my daughter, she's 22 in university. She's getting credit cards approved by her bank when she doesn't even have enough income or a full-time job. And I'm thinking, like, now I remember we were forced in the bank to upsell and cross-sell more services. We never really thought about when you're at a 40% debt service ratio and then you go home, really paycheck to paycheck, you can't dig out of it in your lifetime. If I had only saved $25 a month with compounded interest or whatever those simple things are, I would have been a millionaire. So that's who you're talking to now. And so I really am excited to learn about what you're teaching. So let's get into some cool things. You wrote a book called Money Honey, and then Passive Income, Aggressive Retirement. Give us some of the good stuff. There it is on the screen, everybody. And if you're listening to this, you can't see it, so you'll have to go check it out on Amazon. Beautiful covers. Fantastic. I like the Money Honey. It's got a picture of a cappuccino with I'm trying to do that at home in my home chef kitchen, making little hearts. Well, she's got a bag of money on that cappuccino. So, Rachel, I'm going to be quiet for a while and turn it back to you. You've heard my story. You've heard a lot of stuff. Teach us some of the nuggets in that work you've given us.
Yeah, I'll start with some things in Money Honey that I teach. And I think they're especially helpful right now with what we're going through with the coronavirus. Because right now, a lot of people, I think I read a statistic that most Americans had, less than $500 for an emergency in savings. So, imagine having that and then potentially losing a job, having your hours get cut, and then it's like, what do you do? So right now, it's more important than ever to save as much money as possible and to build up that cash reserve. And when I teach in workshops and I ask people, hey, if you're trying to save money in a short amount of time, what kind of things do you do? Most people will say, I'm going to eat out less. I'm going to shop less. I'm going to make my coffee at home. And all that stuff is great. So there's a common theme there, and it's that we're all focused on decreasing our expenses. And that is absolutely extremely important that we get our spending in line and that we're not spending more than we're making. However, it's limited. There's only so much you can do to decrease your expenses. I mean, you have to buy food, right? You can't stop paying your rent or mortgage or car insurance. So there's only so much you can do. Now, there are exactly two ways to save more money. Okay. Number one is to decrease your expenses. Number two is to increase your income. And for whatever reason, we tend to just not automatically go there. But the beautiful thing about focusing on increasing your income is that there's no cap on how much money you can make. There's nothing stopping you from going out and making more money. So I always tell people, if you really want to make an impact with your budget or really save aggressively, then you really need to focus on doing both, decreasing your expenses and increasing your income. So that's my first tidbit from Money Honey that I'll share with you. Something else I've learned too right now in this coronavirus is that there's this myth that I think is told to people, and I don't agree with it. And people think that having a full-time salary job equates to job stability and income security. And I don't agree, because if you're 100% dependent on a single source of income, then what happens if your hours get cut or you lose your job, right? That income goes away completely. And that's really a scary place to be. So instead, I like to talk about this concept of income diversification. And this just means you have multiple sources of income. So guess what? If you lose one source or one source gets reduced, you don't have to panic because you still have all these other sources of income in place. And that's what I love too about passive income specifically. But I'll tell you how this has impacted me, because it has impacted my income a lot. I currently have 4 passive income streams. And one of the biggest ones is my rental income. Landlords across the world are really struggling right now. I mean, everyone's struggling, but landlords can be in a lot of trouble. In a normal month, my rental income, and when I say rental income, I mean profit, is anywhere from $7,000 to $12,000 per month from rental income alone. In April of this year, so it's pretty solid. In April of this year, our rental income was $1,000. Okay, so we lost a lot of money there. Now, a lot of landlords, they're worse off than me. A lot of landlords are doing a lot better than me. The way I see it is, if my worst case scenario is that I break even for a few months, that's fine. I'm happy with that. But the only reason I'm not in a total panic that I only brought in $1,000 of rental income in April is because I have 3 other passive income streams keeping me afloat. And that's so important for me right now, because if I didn't have that, I would be operating from a place of panic, a place of desperation. It would be a really, really scary time. So I'm very fortunate to have these income streams in place. And I encourage anyone, if you only have one source of income, find a way to generate other sources of income. Don't wait. Do it right now. Get started today, because these types of recessions, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So, let's figure out what we can learn from this and how we can better protect ourselves going forward so that we're more prepared the next time it happens.
Well, I just love that. And everybody, I'm going to get you to hit the pause button again, because my mind's gone on a journey all over my head. And this is a teaching moment, everybody. I'm going to just read back, and on video, I'm looking down at paper, Rachel. That's because my brain is visual. I'm not being distracted. But I wrote down the 2 tips: and reduce expenses. Things like that are awesome. Build cash reserve. And so relevant in what I'm hearing from people today. I'm around people, by the way. I have a thing I do in the evening. I go to a warehouse and I lift heavy boxes because I'm doing physical work to keep active. I had a brain injury from a fall a couple of years ago, and it's getting better. But I'm around people who are making minimum wage, small wages. And when this thing hit, we had some people who were sent home because they had to self-isolate and they couldn't get paid. And it sent ripple effects. Very, very great point. The other one, income diversification. I want to just say this, that, and when you take it back, maybe comment on it. Many of us grow up and around us, our parents, depending on what their education was, they have a job. And so when we say income diversification, what I think is so great about the work you're doing is most people can't write down more than 2 or 3 things. In fact, it's hard to understand what that is. And so I think a book and research education from you on what are those things really makes a difference. My only source of real truth, and maybe it isn't, but Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, I like that book because it's kind of a fable, but the one he did on cash flow quadrant about there's only two ways to get wealthy, and start a business with processes, systems can run itself, and the other one's investing. And leverage, I learned a long time ago. So I'm going to tell you something brilliant about this, why I think that your work belongs even in the corporate sector. Now that maybe is where you're taking it, or you are there. So I apologize if that's you're in that space. But as a guy who runs companies and a paid CEO, when we would hit the wall in the company, we would have to go into a strategy room and look at the levers to fix it. 1, reduce expenses. 2, grow revenue. All right. And growing revenue from the same base didn't work. But if I retooled a few companies into different revenue streams, listen to what Rachel just told us. So it's no different in the world of business. And that's what blows my mind is we have top leaders in running businesses, entrepreneurs running businesses, teaching this in their businesses. But when they go home, they don't live by it. Some of the worst financial managers are financial people, and they're advising us. So what I like about you, Rachel Richards, is your story is compelling because you've done it. And they all say, if you're looking for a mentor, find somebody who's walked the path so that you can follow them and know they've done it before. So just fantastic. Let's get into the biggest things you learn about why people have, I wouldn't use the word failure, but being set back in not just external economic things like COVID-19, but what have you come across in terms of why people end up? What are the top few things in a mess financially?
I think there's a couple things. First is this idea of instant versus delayed gratification. And I always compare to managing your money to being on a diet. And I struggle with dieting. Okay. I'm not perfect in any regard. You know what you should be doing. Like it's all about, if I eat this donut now, I'm not going to have the longer term benefits of, losing weight and being healthy. And it's the same thing with spending money. If I spend the money on this pair of shoes that maybe I don't need right now, then later on, I'm not going to have enough money for the future. So it's this constant struggle between your present self and your future self, and really making sure you're balancing those two, because you don't want to go too far in one direction or the other. There's definitely still such a thing as being too frugal, and I've been that way before, where it can't all be about the future self, so it's hard to find that balance. I think that's a really big struggle, and having the discipline to delay gratification, that's one of the absolute hardest things. The second part of this, Go ahead.
Nope, it's okay. Carry on.
The second part of this is that what I've learned, and again, that you can compare this to dieting, exercise, managing money. A lot of us, we know what we should be doing, right? We know not to eat sugar. We know to go do workouts on a daily basis. We know to save money and not spend it on things we don't need. And we know we should pay down debt. So we all have some of this, common sense knowledge on a basic level. But the hardest thing when it comes to any of these things is implementation. None of that matters unless you're executing it. And that's the hardest thing, is also having the discipline to execute what you know you should be doing. So I think between those two things, that's why things like dieting and money management are so difficult for most people.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that, Rachel. You were a former financial advisor. I would call you a financial guru now. I mean, it's what you do in a world of mistrust, and where there's many financial advisors who are of other generations that are before us, not the younger, but the older, learned. How do you find a mentor that you can trust? What are the things you look for if you're somebody, who's young and building their wealth?
Yeah, so I think you already alluded to it. You have to learn from somebody who's already walked the path that you want to be walking. And I think some of the mistakes that people make, everyone online these days can call themselves a mentor and an influencer and say they're successful and everything. So, but you really have to find somebody who has specifically done what you've already done. I'm a really frugal person, and I actually made the decision to join a mastermind for authors this year. And it was a lot of money, but I looked at all of these different masterminds, all these different coaches, and I decided to go with Penny Hoarder, who is a book coach. She's amazing. She helped Hal Elrod expand his Miracle Morning into an international bestselling series. So I was like, if there's somebody I can learn from, one person in this world, it's this woman, Penny Hoarder. So that's why I ended up going with her. And then another thing to do is really ensuring you're looking at reviews and testimonials. Don't be afraid to ask a mentor or a coach that you're about to hire hire, hey, can I speak to somebody that you have coached and just talk to them about the results they've gained? That's totally fine. There shouldn't be any problem with that. And if there is, or, that person doesn't have testimonials, then that would be something I'm concerned about. So I would say those two things, look for somebody who's already had success, the success that you want, and make sure they can back it up with real testimonials and real results from clients they've already helped.
Oh, thank you for that. That's a teaching moment to everybody, because I automatically take it for granted because I know how to find a good mentor with the years I've been on this planet. But people like my daughter and others in the next gens really don't. And going back to what you said earlier, which I think is a really good moment, is about education. And so in the school systems, I would target teachers and teach teachers and get into the school programs and find a way to get into the curriculum. Audiobooks are out there, and this generation is highly wired. So doing things like podcasts, live interviews, you're a thought leader. And I just want to honor the fact that what you're doing now is being amplified and multiplied and helping so many people. I just pray that the future of the world supports all the hard work that this next generation is going to do to pay for, I hate to use the word sins, but the sins of the past, because it's not an easy world to navigate through when you've had financial crises and things like COVID-19 that have come in. But I have to say that I believe that those things came into our lives to help us hit the pause button and reflect, and maybe, just maybe, do something different. Here's a controversial thought. There are people called futurists out there, and what they're saying is that the education system, the degrees that people are getting, and don't get me going on this because, I was a kid who came out of school through a broken home and had to go work and support my mom, and I didn't get a degree right away. I went to mature education, and I've been tested, and I have the vocational ability of a doctoral or master's student. And I'm telling you that because I want all the kids out there and youth to know that you don't need a degree. You can go get experience and you can learn like Rachel and read books and things and get that degree. But what they're saying is that we don't even know what the world's going to look like. And yet people are teaching us about that future world. And the people that are learning are going to run that world. Some of us won't be in it. You'll be in a world that I will probably not see down the road. And so, where do you see the future of money? I know it's a loaded question, but where's your heart on that?
Oh man, we're still learning so much. But I like what you say about education and how does somebody teach younger generations about what's happening in the future, because they're not going to know really. I think that formal education is definitely more theoretical than practical in a lot of ways. So, do I think college education is for everybody? No, not necessarily, especially because it costs so much now. So I think there's a little bit of a supply and demand problem with that. I always talk about, people ask me, should I pay this much to go to college? Here's how much my tuition is. Here how much I'm going to make starting salary. And I always say, okay, let's slow down for a second. Because when I went into college, I was told with my financial economics degree that my starting salary would be about $60,000. And I found a way to pay my way through school. So I didn't graduate without debt. But most people do. They graduate with a lot of debt. The thing is, my first job out of college, I was making $32,000. So it wasn't anywhere near what my professors and mentors had told me. And I was, a straight A student. I had an impressive resume. So it wasn't for lack of being able to find a good job. So you just have to try your best to kind of calculate that ROI on your degree. But the problem with that is that you just don't know what your starting salary is going to be. So I always tell people, just be conservative in your estimates, consider other options. My husband is a Navy veteran, so he actually used his military benefits to pay for his college. Other people I know are going to trade or vocational schools. Or another thing that's really smart is starting at a community college for the first year or two, and then transferring those credits to a public or private university, and that's where you get your degree from. So I think there's a lot of great ways to go about that in terms of how do I figure out whether I should go to college or not, because that's a tough question.
Yes, thank you. And everybody takes a different path. And, I had to take the path, as I mentioned, through to start work. And I climbed the corporate ladder quickly. I think at 21, a manager, and my first CEO role was 31. And I'm not saying that for ego. It was a lot of hard work, but there were people around me that had MBAs and degrees. And, while I honor education, some people have to go and work. And today you can go online through some of the greatest learning portals and get courses for free. And universities are starting to, I know that several of the deans at a local university here, I did some training for them in the work I do. And they said that that's what they're talking about. They're talking about how to keep the system together, because the educational system in the future may just collapse, because the next gens are not going to pay $80,000 for an MBA, which is what the price was in fact, there's this funny thing on YouTube I saw the other day, or a commercial about an MBA for 15 minutes a day. I mean, you think I'm losing it here? I'm smoking something? No, it's actually a program that's been developed where on-demand learning, anytime, plug in 15 minutes, and over a period of time, you get the same quality of an MBA. It just blew my mind.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's so much free content out there, and there's so many books that you can spend 10 or 15 bucks on and really learn a lot. But Tom, I'll circle back because you'd asked me about the future of money and I digressed a little bit. But in terms of the future of money, kind of here's the way I see it on a micro personal finance level. I think traditionally we have saved, I'll talk about retirement specifically. We've saved for retirement by saving up this massive amount of money, which we'll call a nest egg. This is the nest egg theory. So we save up this nest egg so that by age 65, we have enough money to live off for the rest of our lives. The only thing is, maybe this worked in the past and maybe this was practical for previous generations, but times have changed a lot, and the way we're approaching retirement also needs to change because there's a lot of things going against us now. We're living longer, so we have a longer life expectancy. That means we have to fund more years of retirement. The cost of college we talked about has already placed an enormous burden on my generation. And then the most alarming thing that's happening in the United States is that the Social Security Trust Fund is projected to be fully depleted by the year 2035. Okay, so that means people my age and younger, we can't even count on Social Security to be there at all. And other statistics have cited that millennials will need to accumulate at least $2 million by age 65 in order to retire. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that is a little bit daunting. I don't know many multimillionaires. So trying to think of everybody I know saving up $2 million by age 65, it seems pretty difficult to do. So that's why I love this idea of passive income. To me, passive income is so much more attainable. I had this epiphany a few years ago that once your passive income exceeds your living expenses, you're retired, you're financially independent. So that's what my husband and I started working towards. At first we were like, well, we want $6,000 a month in passive income. Then we eventually increased it. We want $10,000 a month in passive income because we still want to be able to save and have quite a bit of buffer there. But that's been more than enough to cover our expenses. And I think that's much more attainable way to achieve financial independence that anyone can do at any age. And it doesn't take nearly as long.
No, that's amazing. I mean, it's just blowing my mind hearing it from somebody who's 27 years old and, you're living the passive income life, and we'll use the R word, and I'm working to that. And so it's like, give me that, bring it. I want to learn. I think one of the things I enjoyed about the story you told earlier was, people don't see us as mentors or leaders as mentors if they're not real, they're not vulnerable, they don't share their pain. And everybody, if you missed the early part, because we're live streaming, Rachel talked about 4 streams of passive income she built, one of them being rental income. But you talk about COVID-19 and how that's dropped significantly, but the other streams are there. But I think that's something we need to remember, right? Is success isn't a straight line up. There's stories of people that I know personally that have had $1 million net worth, and then the financial collapse happened, and what they worked all their life for just disappeared overnight. I want to talk again a little bit about mental health and just some other skills that I learned from what you're saying. It's built into the themes of what you say about affirmations and resilience. And that, how do I say this? A lot of people like coach and mentor in the executive area because that's where I do my work. Do what you said, the old model: save, pay off the house, have a good job. Oh, by the way, give away half your income to tax, which is what we do in Canada. And and then go enjoy your life. But then they leave their job and the heart attack happens, the stroke happens, the high level of stress that they've navigated through. And there's another thread which I talk about, and we won't make it a purpose on this show, but the trauma that we might have brought in our lives, because half the kids and youth coming into the world are broken from traumatic homes, parentless homes, addicted parents. You can go on and on. In what I told you offline, and I earlier made an announcement, I'm a crisis counselor for what's called Kids Crisis Text Line. And 143 million texts are exchanged since 2013 of kids in crisis calling in with issues that relate to a lot of what we're talking about, being around parents who are addicted or are stressed out or losing jobs. And anxiety goes up when we fear more bad things are going to happen than we believe we can cope with those things. So I'm not painting a down picture. I'm painting the reality of that, if you can learn some of the things that Rachel's teaching, and it's a gift, everybody listening here, and you can create that sense of harmony and freedom and good feeling earlier in your life, you're going to live a lot longer. You're not going to have to endure as much stress. The other thing I want to talk about is I'd love to know what it feels like when you hit that point of retirement and having at least 10,000 a month passive. What did you do with all that time? and tell us what it feels like. I mean, this show is about giving us the emotions. Tell us a story. Like, what is it like when that happens?
Oh man, it's just absolutely crazy. Sometimes I still can't believe it. But I will say, when I say retired, I don't mean that I have quit working. I just mean I'm financially independent. So now I can work when, where, and if I want. Because some people, they retire and they want to play golf or sit on the beach, and that's totally fine. I just get bored really easily, so I wouldn't last that long doing that. So I have chosen to now spend my time doing what I'm truly passionate about, which is teaching young people financial literacy. And that's what brings me fulfillment. Now, my life now, though, that I've quit my job, it's definitely a lot different than before. Because before, I was working full time, doing rentals on the weekends, writing my books in the evenings. I mean, working 80 hours a week. And Tom, I have to commend you for the crisis hotline that you're doing. That's absolutely amazing. And that resonates with me.
Thank you.
I have struggled with anxiety and depression. And I talk about it openly because I think there's a really horrible mental stigma around those mental health topics. But it's very, very common. It's something I've struggled with. So I have to thank you for volunteering your time in such a meaningful way. But those are the things that I went through before I quit, before I achieved financial independence. And now that I've been able to free up my time and be more protective of my time and really take care of my mental health in a more proactive way, my life has definitely changed for the better. So, a typical week is me working maybe 3 days where I stop working around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. My husband and I just moved to Colorado, so we're doing walks every day. We're going on hikes on the weekend, taking our dog to the dog park, and just spending a lot more quality time with one another. So it's crazy. There was a lot of sacrifice. I worked my butt off for it, and I'm really, really in a great spot right now. And I have a lot of peace of mind. So I'm very, very happy. So thank you for asking.
All right. I love it. And I'm mindful of time because I know you had 50 minutes for us today and we have a bit more time, I think, and then we'll start to wrap up. But I got to tell you that, like in that scene in The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, where he's at the top of the mountain ready to go down on his sleigh and he hears the Who's in Whoville singing and his heart grows 3 times in his chest. That's what you just did to me with that last story. And that's why this is going to be an awesome legacy for me to put on my show. Because here's the thing, you became real by talking about the struggles, the depression, the anxiety. Everybody out there listening is saying, that's me. And you found a way through it. And I honor you. I love you and your story because the hero's journey is about that. It's about when something not so good happens, we say we don't want this anymore. And those who answer the call, which by the way is less than 5%, because many are just in despair, they don't hear it, go out and learn and come back as a shaman or a guide. And in your case, somebody who teaches, somebody climbs mountains, somebody who's in the kitchen. I mean, I follow some of your Facebook stuff and I see the pictures of food and I'm a home chef. Chez Tomaso's is my imaginary Michelin star restaurant. In fact, in the age of COVID-19, I'm sitting in my kitchen and I have a green screen. You don't know that, but my passion and energy, because when I look around is my food and things. My wife says, you're kind of weird. And I say, yeah, a blender makes me excited. And so I look at what you just told us, and that is the root cause, I believe, of a lot of financial pain, that we grew up in my case, my father didn't love me, although I found out later he did. So I tried to replace his love with material things. And when I got those things, I still felt empty until I addressed that hole in my soul. Kids compare themselves to each other and they feel they don't have enough. So they're sad. They're not happy. I have a friend who is in a high paid position, who's young, very young, and has a clothing fetish, goes out and buys clothing and expensive shoes and has trouble saving. And I said, dude, the reason why you're doing that is because there's something missing for you. So I want to say this, that together we're going to do some stuff here. I mean, you and I are connected for the rest of our lives, and I can't wait to maybe stand on a stage and talk about this. But everybody, when you're looking for a mentor, look to find somebody like Rachel, who, number one, has come through struggles like you. Number two, has a vision of what life wants to look like. Because here's the other thing, Rachel, that you taught us. I want to share this. They said this when I was in banking as a bank manager. Sitting down selling mutual funds, you need to have $1 million in the bank by the time. Who says I need that number? Unless we start by creating a vision, working backwards. What do I want my life to look like? You know, my stepson says, I don't care if I have a big house. He wants a simple life, to do some simple things. So start with the end in mind, right? And work backwards and figure out what you need first. Because too many of us define our lives, at least I did, on looking around at what everybody else had. And I figured I have to have a 4,000 square foot house. I have to have the boat. I have to have the place at the lake. If I took all that money that I spent on that and paid debt, I'd be retired by now. So just amazing teaching you gave us today. I want to take this moment, Rachel, before I honor you with a few things, to ask you to tell us where we can get a hold of your body of work, your books, anything at all.
Yeah, thank you. So both of my books, Money Honey and Passive Income Aggressive Retirement, are available on Amazon and Audible. So ebook, paperback, and audio. And what I'd love to do for your listeners, Tom, is anyone looking to diversify their income or create multiple streams of income and doesn't know where to start, you can download my Passive Income Starter Kit for free at www.moneyhoneyrachel.com/bonus.
Awesome. What a great offer, everybody. So check out those books, Money Honey. The covers are great, Passive Income, Aggressive Retirement. And I would ask you to get the book or listen to it and do a review, because for authors, reviews mean the word gets out about their work. But I'm going to ask you to do one thing, everybody, before you do that. And I teach this in the work I do. Go away and close your eyes for a moment and ground yourself so you can stay in the moment and you're not in your racing thoughts. Dream and visualize what you want your life to look like down the road, and then sit down and write yourself a story about what you're doing in that life. And then contact Rachel. She'll be your mentor. She'll teach you how to build that residual income, and she'll go out there and teach your family and anybody you know. Rachel, I'm going to help you as long as we're connected, which will be forever, to get your mission out, because it goes hand in hand with happiness. And I really, really appreciate what you're doing. So I'm going to honor you with 4 leadership words here. You see me writing on my paper in my studio here. I don't script anything. By the way, we don't script the interview. This has been awesome. The first one is practical. I call you practical, Rachel, now, because you said that. Teacher. You are a teacher, Money Honey. And passion. It comes out of you, and there's that strength, but there's also that passion in your voice, and you've shared that. And the last one is, I'm going to just say wisdom. Because it blows my mind at your young age how much wisdom you have. And everybody, you can be Rachel because she taught herself and didn't wait for somebody to bring it. I'm really excited for you about where you're heading. I believe, Rachel, that the future of your life, which you can't see yet, is going to be even more abundant than it is today. Now I'm going to induct you into the Quiet Warrior Tribe. I do this because we're on video. Usually I will do it just by offline. In the background, everybody can see this image of a coin. And Rachel, challenge coins were created in World War II. And this one is hand minted and crafted and painted in the United States. Sorry, Canada. And they were given to soldiers, and they used them in World War to create community. And if you showed up, you didn't have yours in your pocket, you had to buy drinks. Today, they're used around the world by first responders, by educational institutions, any organization, AA, where my dad was, to create community. And when I started this show, Rachel, I said, I'm going to only bring 40 people a year on who have taken their lives, turned it into a purpose, and committed to helping. And so this coin, I'm honoring you, and we're inducting you today into the Quiet Warrior Tribe. And you'll be getting this coin. It comes in a cherry box. And I hope that you'll make a commitment to continue living with passion, find that life you deserve and desire, and go out and teach what you're teaching to make everybody else happier.
Thank you so much, Tom. I'm so honored, such a big fan of yours, and so inspired by the way you're giving back and sharing your unique gifts with the world. So thank you so much for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right. We'll have to put a GoPro on and do a virtual hike one day with you guys, or put a GoPro in the kitchen and try to cook up something. So I saw a thumbs up. All right, everybody, I'm going to wrap this up. Rachel, just stay on the line there and we'll let you go in a moment. So find your true passion. Like you hear from Rachel, live the life you deserve and desire, everybody, and live it with purpose. And check out this when it's aired on my podcast. Give it a high rating to support Rachel's work. And thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Rachel, we'll have you back again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca